Hey y'all, Patrick here with Vetted. Thank you guys so much for joining. This video is about basically what I think is the most important thing to come out of the UAP briefing that happened to members of Congress. They got a UAP briefing, okay, in D.C., with certain members of Congress, all right, and what they're calling the SCIF meeting, right? And what I think came out of it, the best thing, the Daily Wire wrote an article about it, and I think that is the thing we need to focus on. So we're going to be taking a look at that. And some other clips surrounding this UAP briefing. So basically, yeah, the DOD, Department of Defense, Inspector General Office, okay, they had a meeting. Here's the guys coming out of the meeting here. All right, that's from Matt Laszlo at Askapol taking this picture. And Robert Storch, who is the DOD Inspector General, so this guy right here, number 4, and some of these guys have been identified, but it's not really important. They're all basically just, supporting him. This guy, number 4. They're all just supporting him, all sort of probably lawyers, to be honest with you. It's quite interesting, okay? So basically, this is where we should have our focus, all right? So here's the title of the article. GOP reps see new opportunity for UFO Select Committee request with Speaker Mike Johnson. So if you don't already know, and pardon me, guys, I'm a little under the weather, so just bear with me today. But we're getting this out, y'all. If you don't already know, Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted, okay, before, and they needed to find a new speaker, and we got this guy, Mike Johnson. That is not him pictured here. That is Tim Bersett, Congressman Tim Bersett. And basically, they think that we'll be able to get a UFO Select Committee from Mike Johnson, right? So this article goes into that, and I think that's what's going on, because all the House oversight committees that sort of, run DOD projects and those sort of things like special access programs and, all these black budget programs and these sort of things, anything to do with defense, those committees don't have UAPs on their radar. However you think about that, they just don't. So what the congressmen are saying is, hey, we need to get our own committee together so that we can get the right clearance and classification to be able to ask the questions we want. Because basically what happened in the UAP briefing is they're being told, you guys don't have the clearance for us to go beyond a certain, level of what we can tell you. So they meet, they get told some stuff. Nothing too crazy, right? You've seen the video that I made about what happened directly after the SCIF meeting. You can check that out. I'll put a link to it. Did a live stream about it. It was just a couple days ago. And yeah, right, they didn't. And we're going to take a look at some clips of Tim Bersett talking about that. But basically, right, they can't get that information. So they need to set up a separate select committee, and then they'll be able to ask the right questions in these UAP briefings, have more hearings, all kinds of stuff can come from that. So that's where I think our focus should be. So let's take a look at this article, and then we'll watch some, I tell you what, we'll come back to this article. Let's watch some stuff on Tim Bersett after this UAP briefing. So we've got a couple clips from News Nation, and then we're also going to watch on, shout out to That UFO podcast for getting this interview with Tim Bersett directly after the SCIF meeting. Got to give it to him. That's journalism right there. So good on him for getting this and getting that out. All right, let's jump in and watch this. This is on News Nation.
Are you satisfied?
Absolutely nothing. It just proved my point that, the federal government learned how to do this during the Second World War. You got to imagine Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Manhattan Project, thousands of people working on an atomic bomb, and less than 12 actually knew what it was, and that was kept secret. These guys are just the classic.
That's true.
It's like a stovepipe, man. They just got their little bit of information, and it doesn't go. And that's the way they keep this. You can say it's disinformation, you can say whatever, but if I got to hear one more time, I don't know what I don't know, and it's another layer of the onion, and we threw another layer, and we know where not to go, and it's with these cans. But it's clear to me, these guys are telling the truth. As I've said many times, most of these folks are patriotic Americans. They're doing their job, but their job, the confines of their job limit them on what they can say to us, because They just don't know. They got to go, and the way they do it is they keep you in a so limited that they could go swear under oath and they could take a lie detector test, and they're telling the truth as they know it.
Nothing new. Nothing new. So I think that with what we're doing, we have a new speaker now. We're working on getting our...
Let's be real. Even if they learned something new, they couldn't say that. You know, to be honest, as much as we want the information, it's actually not good that they come out and say what they did or didn't learn from the SCIF meeting. If I'm being honest, right? If that's the deal, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Because we want them to tell us, but look, we also have national security issues in America, right? We can't just, you know, so they're in a tough position. Let's be real. But again, the focus should be on this new committee.
Select Committee, and I'm very hopeful about that. But
Let me go back.
we're working on getting with what we're doing. We have a new speaker now. We're working on getting our Select Committee, and I'm very hopeful about that. But frankly, it doesn't seem like it's anything other than what we were told. And the fact is that Congress should have oversight and the ability to look into and have access to these programs. And the fact is that we're being told that we don't have access to these programs, which defeats the purpose of what we're supposed to be doing.
But your colleagues do have access if they're on armed services.
No.
Oh, really? No members.
Well, they didn't tell us. They didn't tell us who. They wouldn't answer that.
And was anything?
If they have information they're not going to tell us, they either don't know or it's so complicated, the process by which the information could be available is not going to be available. We can't even find out who is allowed to know. We can't find out if members of Congress are allowed to know, what it takes to let them know, what citizens are allowed to know, which ones, who. We can't even find out that, let alone the information that might or might not be available or known to anyone.
You know, we've got people on both sides of the aisle. My buddy Jared Moskowitz, AOC was in there. You know, just a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, and Luna on our side. I mean, you know, and General Perry and just everybody was in there. I mean, it was the right people to be in there, and they all left frustrated, I felt like.
So, you know, they want information. They can't get it. They can't even find out who's allowed to get that information. Yeah, that's got to be frustrating. But, you know, to some extent, just to play devil's advocate, there's probably good reason for some of that, right? I mean, all of this, you know, what if it is our technology, right? You know, I'm just saying, right? It becomes difficult, right? We do have to keep things, some stuff top secret and, you know, out of the public eye. I mean, I agree with that, right? Everything can't be known to us, right? That's not good either. So it is a catch-22. What do we do? Because we want to know at the same time what's going on. But anyway, all right. So let's hear from Tim Bersett again on That UFO Podcast.
And welcome to a breaking news podcast. It's Andy here from That UFO Podcast, obviously, and joining me in a hastily arranged interview for a few minutes of his time is Congressman Tim Bersett. Tim, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you for having me on again, brother. Really appreciate it.
Listen, thank you. I know you're a busy man, and a bit of a disappointing one today. It sounds like a SCIF has been arranged. I've seen some comments. We've all seen comments on social media. Can you talk about what your hopes were going into the SCIF today and why ultimately you seem to have come out disappointed?
Well, I didn't really have any real hopes because that's what we're getting.
Great question to ask him what his hopes were going into it and his thoughts coming out. Great question.
I told somebody it's like all these guys are like, when I talk to them, they're like looking down the barrel of a .22 rifle. It's just very narrow and very straight. And they're honestly I feel like they're telling the truth within their limited scope, but it is very compartmentalized. And we learned our lesson how to do that during the Second World War when they're developing the atomic bomb. You know, had thousands of people working in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and maybe 12 apparently only knew what they were doing. And so that's how these guys, you know, they come up and they tell you the truth. They could take a lie detector test and pass it because and it's by design, they keep it all contained.
Now, the hope, I think, in the summer was David Grusch would be a part of this SCIF or one of the.
So again, the fact that some stuff does need to be compartmentalized, right? Like, I do agree with that, right? There's something to that for security. Just sometimes, again, it's a double-edged sword, right? So again, I think most people just want us, the government to just say, okay, look, we got some UFOs. We can't tell you all about it. Some of it's top secret. This is what we got that answers that question. Honestly, I think a lot of people would be satisfied with that, right? They do mention the atomic bomb. Only 12 people knew about what we were doing with that, right? And there's even more to that if you look into that story of Oppenheimer and all of that. But, right, we had to do that for a reason. But there was also the reason that we needed to bring the smartest minds to work on part of it, right? So they would work on different parts and didn't know what it was going towards, right? That it was leading to this bomb. But they would work on different aspects that needed to, right? So sort of like a kitchen line, right? That I'm sorry, ex-chef here. You got one guy working on different parts of the dish, right? And then it all comes together, and the guy on Expo can garnish it and get it out and plate it up right and whatever, right? But you have different people working on the protein. Okay, I got the sides, I got this, I got that, whatever the things are. But, I mean, to be fair to that analogy, like, everyone knows what the final dish looks like, so whatever. I guess it would be like trying to work on that, but not knowing what it's going in, what dish it's going into. You're just making it. Now, sometimes you're asked to prep stuff, and you don't know what it's going for, but, hey, prep this, get this ready, do this, figure this out, right? But you don't know what it all leads to. And that happens, too, when chefs are putting together secret stuff, they're working on, they're brainstorming a dish. So, that's just whatever. That analogy is just not working. Apologies. Hey, guys, I'm spitballing here on the fly. But anyway, I think you get my point. Some of that is necessary, right? But it does get in the way of this a little bit.
Sorts of settings. Comments from Senator Gillibrand that he wanted his flights and accommodation paid for.
So he's talking about David Grusch.
How accurate that reporting was, I'm not entirely sure, or if the comments were flippant, but was the hope to get David Grusch in there today, and what happened?
No, that wasn't the attempt today. We're still working on that. We figured out maybe an angle to get him in there and how we can do it, and then we'll go from there.
So flights and accommodation costs aren't going to be an issue to get David Grusch?
No, it's the trouble we've got is them just denying his accessibility. We've got one of our members has an amendment drawn up to a bill.
So that's kind of a bombshell right there dropped, right? That it's his accessibility. That's what's preventing Grusch from getting in. Nothing to do with travel costs, nothing to do with any of that.
To ensure that he is, in fact, able to do that. That seems like it to be a clear-cut way to do it. If there's any financial anything wrong with it, if there's a fiscal cost to it, that would be provided.
So a fiscal cost of putting the SCIF together, potentially, and I guess if it does include flights, hotel, whatever. So kind of a workaround of that, potentially.
Well, I seen Matt Laszlo from Ask.
To be honest with you, that's still just as confusing, that answer, now that I'm thinking about it, right? Like, we still don't know what's going on with David Grusch and getting him in a SCIF meeting. It doesn't sound like that's a top priority, which is interesting.
Paul was on the scene and spoke to yourself and Congressman Burleson, and the comment Matt's put online says that it was mentioned, I believe, by Congressman Burleson that someone had found some sort of propulsion. Is that something that has been talked about, or Mr. Burleson said?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay, I know Matt was...
You can get the recording, and I won't comment on that.
Interesting. So what are they talking about right here? It appears somebody has discovered something, some advanced form of propulsion or technology that may actually change all of our lives. Clearly, it's in an experimental phase, or we're experimenting with it. Now, there's more to that quote, okay? He's not talking about ET stuff. Burleson is talking about, he thinks that we have developed, okay? The United States has developed. So Burleson thinks it's our technology, right? And we'll get more into that. Let's go back and finish this clip.
No, of course, that's fine. Still waiting on that coming out from Matt Laszlo. Do you feel the way things are, they're actively being shut down by folks in the background?
Absolutely. Since 1947, they've told us these things don't exist, and then now they tell us they do exist, but now nobody can tell us where we can look to see where they exist. It's just it's like peeling off the layers of an onion. You get down and you get another layer.
I think for a long time it's been faceless names that have made.
All right, so they kind of just speculate a little bit here, but I'll put links to all this so you can watch the rest of the clip here. I don't want to show the whole thing here. Let's get to this article. All right. GOP, this is from the Daily Wire. Again, I'm going to put links to all of this stuff so you can check it out for yourself. It's written by Danielle Chayton, hope I'm saying that right, and Frank Camp. All right, so let's go through it real quick. House members say they want to try again to get approval for a select committee on unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, now that the chamber has a new speaker, okay, Mike Johnson. All right, so that's it. That's the story, right? A select committee on UAP, right? Specifically for that reason. And it's not a temporary thing, right? It's something that always exists, right? New people can come and go from it. That would be huge, y'all. Representative Tim Bersett from Tennessee told the Daily Wire on Thursday that he's already spoken with Speaker Mike Johnson to gauge support for his endeavor to get Congress more access to secret UAP information. So that's huge, right? So Tim Bersett is already meeting with Mike Johnson about this, right? This is great. He seems very receptive, Bersett said in an interview. When asked if he thinks Johnson might be open to a select committee, he replied, "I do, because he's not beholden to the defense contractors." When pressed on whether he would ask for a select committee, Bersett noted that he has already done so informally, but would need to make the request officially. Well, let's get on it, Bersett. Let's make that request official. But I get it. You got to start informal. Test the waters, right? See what's going on. Another lawmaker, Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri, told the Daily Wire he also wants to press Johnson for a select committee, and he would like to see Bersett as chairman of the panel. Look at that. Give him the authority. Let him chase this rabbit, Burleson said of Bersett. And I think that at the end of the day, there's a lot of money being spent, a lot of tax dollars being spent, and the American people and members of Congress know what is going on. Burleson explained that a select committee would give members a need-to-know authority on UAP. Okay, that is important. Because right now, a lot of the intelligence is only available to individuals who are on committees that need to know. And those committees are not focused on this topic at all. So that's what I was talking about earlier. There are other committees, right, working on defense, but they're not talking about UAP, right? So we need another, right, office to deal with that specifically. And he thinks Bersett should be in charge of that. And I'm all for it. And so if we create a committee that has a purpose for this, it's hard to deny us that we should not have access to the information. There we go. That's how we get around this roadblock, y'all. That's the big story coming out of this, in my opinion. That this is the story. A request for a select committee would be the second one this year. Interesting. So we got denied before. Let's get on this. Let's make it official. Bersett joined with a bipartisan group of fellow House members in late July, formally requesting a select UAP committee right after the bombshell testimony of retired Air Force Major David Grusch, a former U.S. intelligence and military official who claims the government is covering up a UFO retrieval program and wrongfully keeping Congress in the dark. Grusch left members wanting to know more, as he cautioned there was only so much that could be said outside of a classified setting. So it sounds like Kevin McCarthy, the letter from Bersett and his colleagues, which specifically, here, I'm going to open that up. The letter from Bersett and his colleagues, which specifically asked that their proposed select committee be given subpoena power, was addressed to Representative Kevin McCarthy, who served as Speaker at the time. Bersett told the Daily Wire in September that the request had been denied. All right. Since that time, the House voted to remove McCarthy as Speaker. Johnson was picked as a new Speaker on Wednesday. All right. So McCarthy denied him this select committee. Let's see if Johnson can approve it. So before the Daily Wire spoke to them on Thursday, Bersett and Burleson, as well as other members of the House Oversight Committee, attended a classified briefing on Capitol Hill with representatives of the Department of Defense of Inspector General, one of two government watchdogs Grusch had approached with classified information and claims of retaliation related to his disclosures. So that was the meeting that we talked about before, right? Anyway, here's the letter I'm going to put. All right, so this is what they wrote to Speaker McCarthy to have that select committee before. We'll come back to that. So this is the meeting, right? This is what they're talking about. So, and there's another SCIF UAP briefing happening in November. All right, so if that one's going to be any different, I don't know. All right. Some lawmakers walked away from the SCIF, sensitive compartmented information facility, lamenting how they learned nothing new. We've already seen that, right? Representatives Jared Moskowitz and Anna Paulina Luna, they forgot her A there, told reporters they were told that they lacked the proper clearance to get certain information. This defeats the purpose of government oversight, Luna said. Nothing unexpected and nothing new to report, Bersett told the Daily Wire. I mean, these guys, their offices are so compartmentalized. It's like looking down the barrel of a .22 rifle. And they're not lying, but they are so compartmentalized. In a statement posted to X by News Nation's Joe Cahill, the DOG OIG, Office of Inspector General, so Department of Defense, Office of Inspector General, said, the Department of Defense, Office of Inspector General is not responsible, so many acronyms, guys, is not responsible for determining the classification of the information in our oversight work, nor do we determine the level of security clearances for congressional leaders, adding, the DOD OIG is committed to being as transparent and communicative as possible with our congressional leaders and welcome and further opportunity to discuss our body of work. Okay, interesting. Because the briefing was classified, members were restricted in what they could divulge. Yeah, okay. Burleson told the Daily Wire that the briefing did not alter his perspective on the UAP issue, but did emphasize that he thinks we need to get more information on the topic. Hey, that's all we ask, right? You don't have to be all in, but you know there's something going on, right? You don't have to necessarily think it's ET or whatever, but something's going on, right? Clearly. Asked if some degree of answers were provided based on what was alleged, Burleson replied, some degree, but... And it's really frustrating because I can't say what was said, but I'll just say my viewpoint about the UAP phenomena has not changed, which we don't really know his viewpoint on the UAP phenomenon. So we don't know what has changed, what has not changed. Does that make sense? Like that statement isn't out there. So that's interesting. That's what we should ask Burleson. My worldview of what we're seeing and what we're experiencing is that it's likely U.S. experimental. Okay, so maybe this is the view. Whether it's from the private sector or being done through a black operation within the Department of Defense or Energy. Department of Energy keeps coming up, y'all. He also commented, I'll just say this. UFOs are not keeping me up at night. They weren't before, and after this meeting, they weren't. They aren't now. I told a constituent that what keeps me up at night is the national debt, the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel, and the potential for World War III. And so there's nothing that shattered my worldview today. So I can understand that. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world, y'all. They also have other things to worry about. Like they're not just on this. That's why we do need someone just dedicated to this, so they don't have these other things on their plate, right? The other Inspector General with whom Grusch had engaged as a whistleblower was Intelligence Community Inspector General Thomas Monheim. So That is going to be who is doing the next briefing that's coming in November. And this one could be a lot juicier, y'all. The debrief reported in June that Monheim found Grusch's claims to be credible and urgent in July 2022, and a whistleblower reprisal investigation was opened. The report also noted that Grusch got in contact with staffers for the Congressional Intelligence Committees, but Grusch reportedly indicated that he was limited in what he could share because staffers lacked the proper clearances and authority. In a recent letter to the UAP caucus, Monheim said his office has not conducted any audit, inspection, evaluation, or review of alleged UAP programs within the responsibility and authority of the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, that would enable this office to provide a fulsome response to your questions. Monheim is now expected to meet with members of Congress for a UAP-focused classified briefing in mid-November. All right, it's November 16th specifically. At least one House lawmaker isn't getting his hopes up just yet. I don't expect anything from this, Bersett told the Daily Wire. Until we get some private government contractor who's ticked off about something that's dealing with some of this stuff, who comes forward. A lot of it's farmed out to them because it's unfoilable, all right? Freedom of Information Act, right? We can ask for that information. We're never going to get anywhere. It's just going to be our word against theirs. And people in Congress don't have the guts to take them on because the defense contractors grease this place incredibly well. So, yes, there's a lot there, y'all. All right. So, interesting, right? That's what's going on. So, again, I'm going to put links to all this so you can find it. This letter that was originally sent to Kevin McCarthy about a committee. All right. It's very interesting. It's a great letter. There's another article I'm going to put a link to that's quite interesting, too, from The Hill. All right. It's written by Marieke von Rennenkampf, an opinion contributor for The Hill. And The Hill, News Nation, right? These are owned by the same companies, y'all. Nexstar Media, just FYI. And it's a great article. All right, there's a lot in it. It just kind of taking you through where we are with this stuff, right? And I'll put a link to it because they're kind of focusing on what James Lukatsky said, right? Remember that interview from Weaponized, right? This is what they linked to, this Jeremy Corbell tweet here that James Lukatsky went on the record. I don't consider going on a podcast on the record. No offense. That cannot be the case. That's not on the record. That's not on the record. That's on a podcast. You can lie. There's no consequences. I mean, you can literally lie. You know, people lie on the internet all the time. People, we, humans, people, us, everybody, right? It happens. So he said, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Jeremy says, I don't know, Jeremy. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, like, that's not on the record and not confirmed, right? Either, right? The U.S. No. So anyway, who is that guy of that article, right? I'll put his Twitter here. You can find him. He's a former federal government official from the Department of Defense. So take that for what that's worth. I don't know. Just saying. That's who wrote the article on this Hill one. That's getting shared around everywhere, by the way. So I'll put links to all of this so you guys can check it all out, see what's going on. All right. So again, thank you guys so much for joining. Hit the like button if you enjoy my content and this video especially. And please leave your comments down below. I try to read them all. I do read them all. I don't comment back on all of them, but I do read all the comments. So thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video every day at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time about this phenomena, guys. We're going to get to the truth one way or the other. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you guys next time. I'm Patrick with Vetted. Remember, every day's a gift. Peace, y'all.